Hello, I am Seamless, and today I wanted to talk about another question that comes up a lot, not just in lessons, but also in comments and emails and posts everywhere, pretty much forever. It's a bit of a two-parter, but it's still basically the same question. It's about how to go about getting an education in music production. The first question is usually, how did you learn what you learned, or whatever? Did you go to college? Did you take classes? What's up with that? And then the other question is, where should I go to learn these things? What classes should I take? What kind of degrees should I go after, and that kind of thing. And while sort of what happened to me was more of a product of what was going on when I was learning this stuff, I still kind of have a pretty okay stance on, like, an opinion about how to go about this re-college for music. And TLDR, don't. Just don't. Don't go to college for music unless your goal is that you want to teach music. Like, if you want to go really hard on, like, classical or jazz music theory, and you want to get, like, a PhD in music, and you want to be a music professor, if that's what you want to do, then yes, go to college for music. You need to. But if you want to be a performer, or like make money being a musician or being a producer like I am, or a whole bunch of all your idols or whatever, chances are they probably didn't get a degree in music. I'm saying chances are because there are people who totally did. For example, BT went to Berklee College of Music, and he's an alum, and he's really good. And he uses that, like, a lot by doing really complicated, like he actually he did a TV show, like he scored a TV show like a couple months ago, and actually it was more than that, but it was a while ago. But he commented to me that he wouldn't have been able to do that if he didn't have the training that he had from Berklee. And the inference there was that it was really high pressure, really fast, really like chop 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 kind of work, which meant that, like, if he didn't have the skills like that he had learned from college, he wouldn't have been able to keep up with that. It would have been a bit impossible. However, there are totally people at the other end of the spectrum. For example, like I was saying, I didn't go to college. I actually dropped out of college to build my studio. A lot of that, there's two kind of important points about that. One, nothing that I actually planned to have happen actually happened the way I planned it to happen at all. And everything that did happen, there was no way I would ever have been able to plan for it. So how good my decisions are really should not be based on the results. And two, I had really well-to-do, supportive parents who were okay with the idea of me not going to college and letting me live in my mom's house and let me build a studio in her basement. I understand that this is an advantage that not many people in a position to want to be a producer have. However, I can still having gone to college, because I did go to college for music, and having done that and having looked into sort of courses, and this is also what I meant by saying that it was a part of the time, because at the time when I was going to college, there was nothing for the kind of music engineering that I wanted to learn. There was a music synthesis degree at Berklee College of Music, but it covered nothing that I couldn't have figured out on my own at the time. There are plenty of, like, recording engineering, like, schools, like UMass Lowell is relatively well known for this sort of thing, and that's cool, but it mostly focuses on, like, band recording and mixing and that kind of thing. And if you're after more modern electronic approaches to stuff, you really are not going to learn helpful things there. I mean, you will learn helpful stuff, but it'll be stuff that you can learn on the internet in about 5 minutes. And that's the other thing, is that a lot of the information that you want and that you need exists on places like my YouTube channel that just give you the information that you have, and you just take it and run with it. And a lot of you know this, but a lot of you also assume that there's a lot missing, that there's something that's like that in some sort of that's like not present in amateur tutorial videos like mine, that would be present in some kind of, like, accredited professional degree program. And then, I mean, there is, but not enough to justify the price for that kind of thing. And then the other assumption people have is a bit twofold. One, you kind of assume that there are jobs in the industry that are applicable to being a producer. And while there are like 10. And I don't mean like 10 jobs of which there are thousands of people employed. I mean, like, there are 10 people who have these jobs. Well, I mean that these are the people who work for, like, incredibly prestigious, very large companies and are their in-house dude. It's like retaining a lawyer. Not a lot of people retain lawyers. Most lawyers are freelance, and you pay a lawyer for their hours, and then you don't talk to them again until the next time you need to pay for a lawyer. And then people who are in a position to need a lawyer all the time will retain a lawyer, and then they have a lawyer on call. It's kind of like how that works for producers. A lot this skill set and this sort of job market is almost entirely contract based and freelance. And what I mean by that is that it's nobody cares if you have a degree. Like, nobody will ever care unless, you know, you're doing very specific things like going into high end like Hollywood scoring and like TV sound design and that kind of thing. Very like for real industry stuff. That kind of stuff it helps to have a degree, and also it helps to go to the kind of colleges that produce those degrees, because then you get connections, and that is honestly way more valuable than any kind of degree you're going to get. And in fact, a lot of people actually just go to Berkeley for like a year, get the contacts, and then stop, and then just go have a career. That should tell you something. But for like, you know, being a solo producer that produces music and sells it on like Beatport and has a career and goes and does gigs and that kind of thing, no amount of college education is going to give you an advantage on that. Like, what I mean by that is that you could have an advantage by learning some stuff that college could teach you, but you could also learn that on your own. Like the stuff, I did a video about music theory on my Production Basics playlist, and like I made a point of pointing out that like I actually know more about music theory than I talked about in that video, but I only discussed all of the music theory that I actually use in my songs. Which, I mean, I don't make the most musical, you know, melodic stuff, but it's not a huge stretch. Like it's like level like year one theory stuff I know, because that's all the music theory I took in college. And like, you could go to college and then you have like, you know, 4 years of spending so much money, and you know, like 90% of that time is wasted in terms of like stuff you'll actually use. And the degree, actually having a degree, a credential is not going to help you in any way. So let's talk about how I learned what I learned. Now, here's the part where people get a little scared, because I mentioned that I started producing in 2004, which means that it took me 11 years to get to where I am now. And then people are saying, oh, okay, well, I have two options. I could go to college, or I could take 11 years to be the kind of good I want to be, if you want to be the kind of good that I am. Which is not to say that I am better than a lot of people. I'm just saying that like I focus a lot on very complicated, very technical things, which is not always super necessary. Keep that in mind. I mean, like 8 of those years were not spent trying to be any kind of serious with music. I really could probably condense it down to maybe 5 years, which you might be thinking, that's not 11 years. And like there is a little bit of overlap where like I was kind of on and off, and then I kind of like then I was like, you know, I guess I'm gonna have a career in music. That's just sort of how it's gonna work out. And then it's funny because when I actually started focusing on what it means to have a career in music while I was in college, I realized that college wasn't gonna help me at all. And the other part of that is that like I was also going for like extremely traditional music education experience. Like my plan was that I was gonna do 2 years of community college, and I was gonna transfer to the Eastman School of Music in Rochester, New York, and that was the like the music professor path that I was on. And when I was like, okay, well, what if I just want to record bands? And then I thought about it, I'm like, and like there was like a recording class in the music program, and like I went there, and I realized I already knew everything they were teaching, and it was the basic level stuff, but like I was like, okay, like that was one of those things where like I also assumed that there was a whole just incredible whole level of stuff that I didn't know, that like professionals knew, that enabled them to do the stuff that they wanted to do. And here's the thing, like think about basic synthesis, basic mixing, basic mastering. That's all the stuff anybody ever uses. It's just that their ears and their decisions about how to use the stuff are what makes them the professionals they are. And you can't teach that stuff. I mean, I could give you tips and tricks and talk about like specific examples about stuff I did for specific reasons and tracks that I make and that kind of thing, which I do, but it's up to you to kind of develop that kind of intuition yourself. There are no more like whole classes of advanced like how to do this stuff than what you really already know. And I know how you feel like if you're at this point in your life, you're sitting there like you feel like you learned a lot and you can't really find any kind of new information, but you're still not getting where you're going, and people are getting where they're going. So you know it's possible, but you don't know how. And you're thinking, well, okay, they know something I don't. And it really just comes down to experience, which varies for everyone about how long that is. For me, it was fucking 11 years. But, like, it doesn't. I also, started doing this in 2004 when FL4 was out. Ableton wasn't even out yet. There was Reason 2. I don't even remember what Logic was doing. I don't remember what Cubase was doing. Sonar wasn't even a thing yet. Like, technology sucked. Like, stuff is just, like, way easier to do now. And to that end, like, and that's something else. I feel like a lot of the assumption about the difficulty of the craft is born of older professionals who did have to, like, really try very hard to learn how to do this stuff with much more difficult, like, conditions. Like, pure hardware, pure analog. The beginning of digital, which was just, like, janky as shit, which is where it gets a lot of its reputation for being janky as shit. Like, if I'd gone through that, too, like, that would have been, like, 20 years before I could even do anything even close to what I do now. And, like, as a result, like, those are the stories that we grow up hearing, and then we think about, damn, this is just so difficult, I have to, like, you do whatever. But you have to realize that stuff is just so much easier now. Stuff is so much easier, it's so much cheaper, and, like, you do not need to spend years and years and years to kind of, and, like, they're really, people are just being like, okay, well, I want to go, and, like, I want to know everything, so I want to go hard, I want to do the professional, like, courses, and, like, focus and get every little nitty gritty or whatever. I'm still just telling you, 80% of that is not going to help you do what you want to do. At least for, like, institutional, super actual, for real colleges. That's not really going to help you what you're doing. For a college career, I still recommend that you go to college for, like, what amounts to being your fallback plan. Like, if music is your day job, and music you want to be forever and go on gigs and live on the road and that kind of thing, do that, can work towards that, but you need to have a fail-safe. So go to college for fucking STEM shit, science. Computer science, a career that will, that you can actually take a degree to some business somewhere and be like, I have a degree, and they'll be like, awesome, you're hired. Like, do that, and then do music on your own time, because you can, and there are plenty of resources online, and for free most of the time, or at least rather inexpensive, that will get you where you want to go. There is no secret sauce left in accredited, college experience that will get you stuff that you'll miss everywhere else. For the standard kind of, like, being a producer kind of thing. Again, if you want to go really, really, really hard on music and be like the professor-y kind of person, or like BT did to do all the ridiculous, like, I'm gonna go to Miami tomorrow to watch him have an orchestra version of all of his music. That kind of shit required some training. But, yeah. The other question that comes from this is where, there's like producing schools online, places like Dubspot, Sonic Academy, Bass Gorilla, that sort of thing, like paid content for that sort of stuff. And, like, I've never personally worked with Dubspot. I can vouch a little bit for Bass Gorilla and Sonic Academy, mostly because I make content for them. But when I was in your position where I was trying to find, places to learn for this sort of stuff, these places kind of existed. They weren't quite the same. Or they literally weren't the same. But, like, the idea that I had to pay for it before I even knew what was going to be a thing made me feel kind of weird. And the free content that they would have, like the free tutorials that they would have on YouTube when that became a thing finally, because YouTube wasn't a thing in 2004, they, like, the free tutorials or whatever were already stuff that I do extremely well, and it wasn't endearing me to their abilities to teach me anything. Which is not to say that they can't teach you anything, because I did I had a lot of experience already doing stuff coming up at that point, and, like, I had a weird like trajectory when it comes to my education, because, like, I fiddled around with FL for a couple of years. I also did theater sound, which, uses, like, actual, like, mixers and soundboards and whatever. So, like, I had experience using that kind of stuff, and there were a couple of recording classes that I took in high school, because I went to performing arts high school, but they were, like, super rudimentary. But it was enough that, like, I could see the parallels between, like, we were using Digital Performer on a Mac, and I was using FL, and I was like, wait, they're comparable. They could actually do some of the similar things. Back then, they weren't actually comparable, and FL didn't even have, like, recording capabilities, but by the time it did, I sort of had a good understanding of how all that stuff worked. So, like, by the time, like, and again, like I was doing stuff, but I wasn't really trying very hard to have a career, and so it meant that like on my off time I'd be doing crap, and I would end up learning stuff just by doing that. And then like by the time I decided that I wanted to be like a metal producer and I wanted to record bands or whatever, I already had like a lot of practical experience that I just wasn't actualizing and that kind of thing. I honestly think that if like from absolute zero, if you're just beginning and being like, I want to be a producer, I want to know everything, it would take you maybe a year and a half of like solid, honest to God, like trying hard to get you to where I am now. It really wouldn't take you that long. It would take you 1/10 the amount of time it took me, and that's just because I wasn't paying attention for so many years. Like that's really all there is to that. Because like once I really was starting to pay attention to stuff, like, and there were resources for the stuff as well, because there wasn't. One very important part about 2004 is that not only did YouTube not exist, but there were like forums and stuff that still existed, and they were not handy. They were not full of people who wanted to teach you stuff, and people were just so into having secrets, and they still are, and that's fine. But the stuff that they have secrets for are honestly not that complicated anymore. So, yeah. And like, the landscape is very different. And not only that, but I've also seen both worlds. I've seen what it was like when there was nothing, and I now know what it's like when there's a lot. And the difference is staggering in terms of the content that's available to you for free and the information that's available for you for free, and especially for like the modern EDM style of production, you're not going to find like helpful guidance in any kind of like actual college. And I really just recommend that you go to college for a more sensible career and then do the music stuff on your own time. Which I know is difficult, and actually one of the reasons why I dropped out of college instead of like changing my major is because I am like a bad student. I'm really bad at being a student. I just am so lazy. I just can't. This is just bad. So like, I knew that if I was focusing on a career in music, that either my career in music or the college experience would suffer from my divided attention. So I figured I had to go hard on one versus the other. But that's me. That's not everybody. I know people who have done the multitasking thing and they kicked ass. It was really great. That's just not me. So I made the calculated decision to understand myself and to make the choice I made made the best sense for me. And that's actually another good point, is that like really try and figure out like what it means for you, like what your goals are, what you need, what you can do, what you can't do. Like think really hard and try to be honest with yourself about that, because that will influence what kind of decisions will be a smart one for you. Yeah. So I hope that made sense. I hope everything I said made sense. I don't want to like disparage the colleges that do have like production courses, but for the most part, they're not degree programs. They're like electives. And I honestly don't know like if there would be a real value in a degree program, like a 4-year degree program. There's not 4 years worth of shit to learn. Like, unless you want to be a professor and know everything, and like all the historical stuff, all the theoretical stuff, all like from the beginning of time to the most modern. If you want to know all that stuff, then like for most of the traditional stuff, you have to go to college for that kind of crap. Because the only people that know that well enough to talk about it generally work for colleges, and they don't. I mean, I actually don't know if there are like high-level music theory like YouTube videos. There probably are, like, because they're just books on it. Go find a book. I mean, this is stuff like, especially like classical music theory is super old and super well known and codified, like for real. And jazz music theory isn't as old, but it's still pretty old, and it's similarly codified, which means that like people are really good at knowing how to talk about it. People are really good about knowing how to write about it. So you can probably find a book and get as much about it in your own time. And if you think about it, that's also true for a lot of other like stuff. Like if your goal is to actually learn about the stuff, you probably could survive just getting like a calculus book and reading it. It would be fucking hard, but you could do it, and you could do it for free. But obviously there's value in having a teacher kind of like guide you through it and tell you about the stuff, and they know where the pitfalls are. They know where people have problems, and they can help you. And it's a lot easier than trying to dick around on your own, because boy, have I ever dicked around on my own for an incredible amount of time, not learning insanely simple shit about stuff like FM synthesis just because nobody ever talked about it, because they didn't think they need to, but they did. I could have saved so many years if I had just learned some of the more extremely simple stuff about FM, which is why when I learned it, I immediately made a tutorial video. And now I have a tutorial video that's a resource for you as well, and for other producers, just for at least for sound design, that kind of thing. Yeah, I just don't think that kind of value exists yet for colleges, specifically colleges, and especially for how the college and degree programs are structured. I do not think there is really any kind of like modern producer degree program that would be any value to anybody. There are like electives and stuff. So if you go for like get a major in like biology and then get a minor in music and then take a whole bunch of electives and like some weird synthesizer courses and that kind of thing, you might find some value in that. But again, I don't think you should split your attention like that when you're in college, because a lot of that stuff you can also do on your own. And I mean, the industry knows this, which is why places like Dubspot and Talk Academy exist, because they know that the information they have is valuable, but it's not worth a degree program. It's not worth a 4-year drawn out stupid program to learn the stuff. And so the other question is being like, about like, is it valuable to like, to pay people to get taught? And like, that's up to you. How good are you at learning stuff by yourself? How good are you at finding information on your own? Which is one of the reasons why I offer, lessons, private lessons, that kind of thing. Although everything I talk about in my lessons is usually present in videos, which is why I'm making these style of videos, these kind of like rambly, ranty videos, because these are things I tell students when they ask me these questions. And I really would prefer, I like making money as much as the next guy, but I would really prefer that people are able to find the information on their own without having to have someone tell them what's up. So that's why I'm making these videos as it occurs to me to do them when someone asks me questions like, education, what's up? And then it's kind of like, well, here's what's up. I'm like, I should probably tell people about this because then they wouldn't ask me. Of course they will, because they won't know I made these videos, but some people will. Some people will be saved the effort. If you have any questions about this, please let me know. I will engage you in them. And as usual, have a nice day.